Hey guys, in this video I'd like to explain you something about the right seat, left seat responsibilities, captain, co-pilot, pilot flying, pilot monitoring, all these I would like to explain a little bit. We're up front with the two of us in the cockpit. Normally the right seat is used for the pilot flying. That means literally manipulating the flight controls or the primary automation flight controls. That means manipulating the autopilots, basically responsible for flying the aircraft. In the left-hand seat, we have the pilot monitoring. The pilot monitoring is responsible for radio communication and everything around flying. What is the role for a captain and a co-pilot? In our company, we do not have a fixed seat policy. So that means I am a captain and I am able to fly from the left or the right-hand seat. And before the flight, we decide, or I decide basically as the captain. Now, the pilot flying, that can be the co-pilot or the captain, is in the right seat. And even though if the co-pilot is freshly trained on the type, just finished the line training, he or she is fully capable of flying the helicopter in normal and emergency condition. That is the level where the co-pilot is trained and he or she is responsible for that role once pilot flying. If I am the captain and I'm in the left seat and there's an emergency going on that really requires the helicopter to be manipulated right away, it's still the co-pilot. If he or she is the pilot flying in the right seat, that will be the person responsible for dealing with the emergencies. So, irrespective if I'm a captain or a co-pilot, we refer to as pilot flying and pilot monitoring. Now, why is there such a difference in a captain and a co-pilot in the, well, basically experience level? The captain or commander is always responsible for the flight. From before the flight to after the flight. I have the responsibility for the aircraft, the crew, the safety of the passengers, absolutely everything. But once we board the helicopter, once we start up, we basically forget our rank, so to say. Then it's the pilot flying and the pilot monitoring. Of course, in the background, I am always thinking as the responsible commander. So that means if there's a decision to be made and the co-pilot makes the decision, I always check if the decision is in line with our operations manual, with the regulations. Our roles as pilot flying and pilot monitoring are completely described in our operations manual. This is what we call SOPs, Standard Operating Procedures. With these SOPs we have standard calls, and the calls from the right and the left are completely described. So there's no surprise in what my colleague will say to me when I initiate something or when I do something. This is for normal but also for abnormal or emergency situations. Then of course on top of that we have checklists. And I'll show one here. This is our normal checklist as we have in the cockpit, and I'll show it also separate on the screen. Our checklist has two sides, a brown side and a blue side. The brown side is for on the ground and the blue side is, well, for in the air. The brown side, or yeah, basically the ground side, is the pre-flight checks, the before starts, the engine starts, the after starts, before taxi checks, the taxi checks itself, and then the before takeoff checks. We go to the other side. Once we have departed, we go to the hover checks, the after takeoff checks. This is all what happens in the air. Now, a checklist, how to use the checklist, is actually also written in our operations manual, because the checklist itself is not a standalone document. Behind the checklist there is an expanded checklist, and all our pilots are trained on it to know exactly each item what it means. In some of my videos, especially when I fly with a very experienced colleague, another captain, we sound like we rush through the checks, but that is because we both know exactly the checks and what is behind the checks. And actually we can even work ahead. I can do items on the checklist, and then before we are at the phase of the flight I can ask for the checklist, initiate the checklist, and some of the items I might already have done and we just confirm it on the checklist. That's why it's called a checklist and not a do list. There are two ways we use the checklist. One is challenge response. You'll see that most, for instance, like the before start checks or the engine start checks itself. That means I initiate a checklist from the right hand seat. I ask for the checklist. The left seat starts with the checks, and each item he reads out loud and I respond to these items. We call that challenge response. But there are phases of flight that is actually annoying for me, if I am pilot flying in the right seat, to constantly be distracted basically by a checklist. And for moments like taxiing or before takeoff checks, when I'm just about to enter the runway and look around, I don't want to be disturbed really by the checklist. But still we need to do the checks. Now, to do these checks, we have a challenge and do checklist. And that means all the items that have dotted lines, and I can show it for instance on the before takeoff checks. Dotted lines means the pilot monitoring, or the left seat, calls out loud the item, but also does the item itself. So he or she basically informs me I am doing it. And that's slightly different than most of the other parts of our checklist, where it's challenge, he or she challenges me, and then I need to manipulate a switch or a control and I confirm it. So I've explained something about the right seat, the left seat, captain, co-pilot, pilot flying, pilot monitoring, all these roles. Around these roles, which is very important in aviation in general, but especially in offshore helicopter flying, is workload management. I've explained the roles of the right seat, the left seat, but at all times during the flight, especially the captain, the commander, is responsible to manage the workload. Our workload increases and decreases constantly during the flight. Think about it. During departure, our workload is relatively high. We're close to the ground, we're busy with ATC, we're manipulating controls, we are dealing with the cockpit. Once we have departed and we are in cruise flight, our workload decreases. Then we can plan and talk about the landing, the approach we're going to make, how we're going to make that approach. So then our workload is relatively low. If something would happen unexpectedly, let's say an emergency, something goes wrong with the helicopter, there's a technical malfunction or whatsoever, suddenly our workload increases again. Now, and to manage this workload, the captain or the commander is at all times very, very aware what the level of the workload is currently and how much the colleague, the co-pilot, is able to take in workload. So that could be that when it's really critical, the workload, the captain actually doesn't take controls, for instance. Many people think that once there is a problem, the captain takes over the controls. That's not really the case. Quite clearly so, the opposite really, because the co-pilot is perfectly capable of flying the helicopter. But as a captain, I really need to have the overview of the cockpit, the helicopter, safety, my surroundings, situational awareness, and again the workload. Because when I'm aware of the workload, I can cope with anything that is maybe to come. And that's a very, very important thing in multi-crew flying. As a captain, it's vital important to be very, very thorough and critical regarding the workload management. At all times, I need to really know what my capacity is in workload. Am I able to take more? Maybe. Or am I about to level off in my peak of my curve with my workload? If that is the case, I really need to divide the tasks more. Even though in our SOPs, our standard operating procedures, it's clearly described what our roles are. If there is an emergency, if there is a situation that needs more attention, it might be that I give more tasks to my colleague. And this is very important, especially in a multi-crew environment, to always have room left for the unexpected to happen. The best tool we have to manage our workload is communication. And think of it, we are up front here with the two of us, a captain and a co-pilot, and even though there might be a huge difference in experience level, the co-pilot might be just in the company with 500 hours, and as a captain I have over 10,000 hours, so that might be there is a difference in experience level. For the captain, it is very, very important, and I cannot stress that enough, for a captain to be able to set an atmosphere where the hierarchy is completely level. So that means the gradient, as we call it, is horizontal. So for me, that means I am responsible when I fly with a co-pilot to set an atmosphere that the co-pilot at all times feels confident and comfortable to speak up to me and say, or ask a question. What is the minima? Where are we? What are you doing? Why are these open questions are so powerful And that, I think, is overlooked in aviation. That is vitally important for aviation safety. Okay guys, and before I end the video, I really would like to show you where I start up the 139 using the checklist with another captain. And like I said before, it looks like we're rushing through the checks, but in reality we're not. We both know exactly what we're doing. So thank you very much, and thank you so much for watching.
Comnav, set. Flight controls, checked. Image lights, armed. Float, off. Radar, off. Test panel, tested. Engine trim, checked. Back in auto. Collective switches, yeah, by side. Landing gear, yeah, it's down to range. Park brakes, is on pressurized. Rudder alt, set 200. Check my sights, altimeters. Yeah, 1016 indicating 0. Check the starts. Doors are closed. Seatbelts, park briefing. Yeah, not applicable. Anti-collision, set. Rotor brake, off. Fuel panel, set. Main bus voltage, off 33. Engines for jou. Number 1. Starting 1. Check. Okay, starter, ignition, NG is rising. Rotor steering, light up. Ping at 612. 49 starter is out. Stabilizing number 2. Check.